Hey, what's going on? It's Pyrobun here, giving you the in-depth Arcane Mage guide for patch 6.2 in Warlords of Draenor. In this video, we're going to be covering the best in slot gear, the rotation, obviously, talents and glyphs, and what to do in certain scenarios. My background is I'm a 13 out of 13 Mythic Raider, and I put extensive research into my class. So I feel I can give you a very beneficial video. But before we actually get into the guide itself, there's a few prerequisites you have to have, and that's going to be your 4-piece, your 2 best in slot trinkets, and your legendary ring, because these is what I'm going to base your end rotation. This is what your rotation, once you get all these pieces of gear, look like. And yeah, so the way we're going to start off this video, I'm actually going to tell you what the trinkets do and what the 4-set does and how they all coincide. It'll all make sense at the end of the video, so try to pay attention along the way and it'll all make sense, I promise. Alright, so the Tome of the Shifting Words. That's our class trinket as a mage, and what it does is when you have arcane power, it has a percentage reduced of the cooldown of Arcane Blast. So basically, it's the global, if you know what the global is, but this part, when it's going around in the circle, is actually reduced once you use Arcane Power with the Clash Trinket. And it's 42% for Mythic, so I'd imagine that varies between normal and Heroic. So your next piece of gear is your Prophecy of Fear, and the Prophecy of Fear trinket, basically, if it procs on something, it'll give it the Market Doom debuff, so any direct spell damage on that creature that gets the debuff, it gets extra damage to it. And let me tell you, it is quite a bit of damage when it procs. It's a big thing that Arcane Mage is based around, is this trinket, because Arcane Missiles can do direct damage and it has a lot of ticks. So next, our legendary ring. It's pretty straightforward. You use it, and anything in that next 15 seconds, your damage is increased by quite a bit. Really straightforward. And then your 4-set bonus. Any arcane missiles has a 35% chance to create time anomaly, and summoning a random hero through time to assist you in the battle for 10 seconds. The short form, it summons a pet, right? It summons a pet. Temporary pet that lasts 10 seconds and it does damage. That's the short version. So, why did I just tell you all what those pieces of gear mean? Well, those pieces of gear actually alter your rotation, and I'll explain it when we go to the talent choice, but we're going to move into stat priority. So, a lot of people get haste and mastery mixed up. Haste is actually better than mastery in patch 6.2 because with the tier 18 set bonus, the more spells that you're casting, the more arcane blasts you are casting, it has the better chance of you proccing arcane missiles. With more arcane missiles, that means you can actually get more time anomalies, these pets that do extra damage. Therefore, without the 4-set bonus, it wouldn't be like that. But since you have the 4-set bonus, the more arcane blasts you can get in, the more arcane missiles you can get. The more arcane missiles you can get, the more chances of you getting a time anomaly proc. Alright, going on is mastery. It goes haste, then mastery. Basically, the more mastery you have, it increases all the spell damage done up to 65% based on the amount of mana the mage has unspent. So in the short version, the more mana you have, the more damage you do. That's what mastery does. Going on from there, it's a really, really, really small gap between multi-strike and critical strike. Sorry, I don't know why I was so confused there. And then versatility, obviously, is your last stat priority. So to repeat it from the top, it goes haste, mastery, either multi-strike or crit, and then versatility. The main part is mastery and haste. You want to stack that. You want to get your haste enchants on your neck, and you want to get on your rings and stuff. And there is no definite haste cap. I know a lot of people ask me that. There's no actual definite haste cap. Try to go around 22 to 25% with food, and then from there, if you get any like new gem pieces, you can stack it with mastery. So moving on, we're going to go into our talents and glyphs. So from the top, Ice Flows is definitely the best one, unless you're soaking like Cavitation for Fell Lord, or you're on Mythic Zool and you're trying to bait out the chains. That's when you'd use Evanesce. Other than that though, use Ice Flows because it creates a really nice mobility for the mage. Going on from there, you would want to use Ice Barrier or Flame Glow. Either or works. It's just a really good damage reduction, Ice Barrier, and Flame Glow is a really good passive if you're lazy, like I am most of the time. But I picked Ice Barrier because I was doing a fight that needed some extra reduction of damage. Level 45 talents, doesn't matter. Take your pick. None of them do anything. Level 60, Greater Biz. Best damage reduction ability in the game, in my opinion. Have it key bound to something really nice. Even Ice Flows have it key bound to something nice. Mine's Q, because when I walk it's W, and if I'm in trouble I just hit Q and it's right there, so it's really, really nice. Okay, so our level 75 talents. So, remember when I was talking about our class trinket. So, if you didn't have the class trinket, Supernova would actually be the better talent no matter what. The reason being is what unstable magic actually does. I'll read it to you. Arcane Blast, Fireball, Frost Firebolt, and Frostbolt have a 15% chance to explode on impact, dealing an additional 50% damage to the target and all other enemies within 8 yards. So basically, another version of saying that is if you Arcane Blast, there's a 15% chance to blow up other minions around it or enemies, or whatever you want to call it. So why does that matter if the class trinket? Well, what the class trinket does is when you use arcane power, which means you're actually dropping crystal as well, it increases the damage and reduces the cast time, the global cooldown of Arcane Boss by 42%. So if it's right on pull and you have a 15% chance of getting that explosion into the crystal, and you have even a global cooldown reduced, you're gonna be like smashing, a bunch of arcane blasts in, and if you do the math, 15, 30, 45, 70, 85, 100%. That's 6 arcane blast globals. So if you can get if you can get 6 arcane blast globals into your crystal, that means it's statistically it's 100% guaranteed to proc onto the crystal. And, that's your main ability. You're going to be using around like 50, 40, 60 around a fight, I'd imagine. So it's a lot better. As opposed if you didn't have the class trinket, you wouldn't be getting as many globals in. That's all I'm trying to say. But you do use Supernova on certain fights, such as Mythic Manroth when the imps come out, or Hellfire Assault, or even Cormrock when the hands come out. You want to just Supernova them down and get them down really quickly. So going into our level 9 talents, this Rune of Power and Incanter's Flow. Basically, if you're not going to be in the Rune of Power for 90% of the fight, just use Incanter's Flow and passively get that damage increase. But if you are going to be in a small radius of 6 yards, then just use Rune of Power and stay in at 90% of the fight so you actually benefit from it. Going into our level 100 talents is Prismatic Crystal by far. It's based around the rotation, which we will go through. And it's definitely the most damage you're going to input, or output rather, into a fight. So let's get into our glyphs. So Arcane Explosion you'll use on something like Cormrock when the hands come out and you've used your Presence of Mind to get 1 global into the crystal, and you got your 2 supernovas in, and you're trying to get a filler spell. This is your glyph that will enable you to use Arcane Explosion because it increases your damage by, a lot. And it also increases the radius. So moving on, we got the Rapid Displacement glyph. It gives you 2 blinks. and that's really like just good for mobility. Not much to say about there. It's just really nice to have 2 blinks. Why would you not want to have 2 blinks? Then slow, basically any arcane blasts you do, it slows the creature. For a good example is on Fellord, or sorry, not Fellord, Kilrog. When the bloods come out, you want to slow them before the blood actually hits the boss. That's really beneficial to the raid composition. So let's go into our single target rotation. So when I was talking about the Prophecy of Fear and why you need to have this trinket, is because it's an RPPM trinket, as you can see right here. What that basically means is the higher the RPPM is, the better chance of it to proc. If it's max at the start, which it is right now, it has a 50% chance to proc on the crystal when you drop it, or has a 50% chance to hit the boss, or in this case the dummy. So no matter what, like whatever the Mark of Doom trinket actually procs on, you switch to that with your arcane missiles. But say it procs on the boss, what I usually do is I spam all my arcane blasts into the prismatic crystal, and as soon as I get a missile proc, I actually missile the boss. I switch targets and then switch back to the crystal, because you get more damage from arcane blasting the crystal than arcane blasting the boss. But if you do get a missile proc, you want to missile the boss, because that's the Mark of Doom. So the rotation is going to look like in the pre-pot, you're going to drop your crystal, you're going to arcane power, and you're going to just go hard with the arcane blasts. And at the last second, you want to get that last global, and you want to use presence of mind, get that last global in, get the last arcane blast in. The reason, and like I said, the reason why you're putting crystal right at the start is because it has a 50% chance. Rather, if you were to build up 4 charges of arcane blast and then drop the crystal like you would in a BRF, the problem with that is that it could proc on the boss, in this case the dummy. Has a very slim chance of actually proccing into the crystal again once it's reset to basically 0 and climbing back up to max. So here's what your burst rotation is going to look like. We're going to get into the reserve phase after. So you're going to drop it, you're going to pre-pot, but I'm not going to waste one. You're going to pre-pot, you're going to arcane power, and you're going to arcane blast all the way. My Doom Nova proc, so I'm just missiling whatever it's procced on. In this case, it is the prismatic crystal. So I get any missile proc, I get that last global in. Then I keep burning till arcane power is done, but since it's the pull, the pre-pot doesn't really end till around 45%. 45% you evocate. That's your burn phase. Some mages burn to 0. I don't find that beneficial because the mastery basically, the more mana you have, the more damage you do. And if you don't have mana, then you're losing DPS. So that's why I evocate when the arcane power expires, but on pull, it's as soon as the pre-pot expires for me. And then your second prismatic crystal, that fight, you're actually going to just evocate as soon as the arcane power is done, and only take 1 tick of evocate. You don't want to use the whole evocate, because as soon as you take the 1 tick of the evocate, you're already up to where you should be if you evocate around 45-50%. You're already going to be where you need to be. You always want to have your mana at like 90 to 100%. So, into the reserve phase, a lot of people just think of it as 4 arcane blasts, use your missiles, barrage. But that's not really the case. The arcane blast, you put in 4, depending if you have a missile proc or not, you'll either barrage, missile, arcane blast again, see if you have a missile, and barrage. I know that's going to sound like really confusing, but I'll show you. So your reserve phase, you always want to build up to 4 charges. And then here, you see if I barrage right there, by the time I got up, I'd be at 99% mana. 99% mana isn't where you want to be at. You could have got another global of Arcane Blast in, so let me show you. We're going to ignore it proccing right now. In this case, you would actually start Arcane Missiling. But you see how I got in another global of the Arcane Blast. See, and if it's at 90 like 4, you can get another one in. Oh, you got another missile proc, you can use another Arcane Blast. No missile procs, barrage. So it's not just 1, 2, 3, 4. See if you got missiles, use them, barrage. That's not the case. You gotta keep weaving them in. If you have a missile, you have another time for another Arcane Blast global. So in this case, I have an Arcane Missile, so I'll Arcane Blast again. I got another missile, so I'll Arcane Blast again. This is what we call weaving, if you ever want to reference that term in the future. So, the last part I want to talk about is our ring, and why the ring is super important for the Arcane Mage. A big thing that would happen to me was I just used my prismatic crystal on cooldown, and that was a terrible idea. The reason being is if you waited that 30 seconds and if you lined up the prismatic crystal and the arcane power for the ring, you'd actually do a hell of a lot more damage, because cooldown stacking in this game does more than a lot of damage spread out evenly between a long period of time. It's all about bursting in this game. So, say you used your prismatic crystal, it's on cooldown, it's coming up. Next to 10 seconds it comes up off cooldown. But you have 40 seconds on your ring. What you're going to do is you're going to wait that extra 30 seconds without using your arcane power and your prismatic crystal till ring comes up. That way you're cooldown stacking and you're doing extra damage. Another version of cooldown stacking is you want to use your potion for one of the rings, usually the ring and lust. That's when you're going to use your second potion on every fight. So I'm going to go over the rotation one more time in full. I'm going to go up to the reserve phase. And yeah. So pre-pull, here I'll even pot here. Pre-pull, arcane power, getting all my blasts in, procced into the crystal, which is good. I got a missile proc, using it. We got another missile proc. Can't get the last presence of mine in, so that's okay. Arcane power is done, so I evocate. Building up, 1 charge, 2 charge, 3 charge. Got my 4th charge using missile. Since I had missile, I can get another blast in. So I didn't get another missile, so I barrage. Do arcane blast, got a missile. So at 4, I can missile again. Ooh, I have 2 missiles, so I can get another arcane blast in, barrage, and that's your rotation. Again, if the trinket ever procs, that means you're using as many missiles as you can before the trinket expires. Okay. So the last thing I want to go over before we end this video is, if you can see the Mark of Doom trinket, when it procs, it pops up on my screen. That's actually because it's a weak aura, and it'll be really easy for you to play a mage if you have this weak aura. So I'm gonna link it into this description, and you guys can look up a weak aura guide, but just import it in, and you're gonna need that weak aura for sure. That weak aura will help you. It's gonna glow if you're targeting the right target that has the Mark of Doom proc, and it's gonna be dim if you're not on the right target. If I could bait it right here, that would be nice, but I don't think I can. Yeah, it's probably not gonna happen. But anyways, guys, I'm gonna be making another video for Fire Mage, as well as make 13 videos. I know 13 videos of me playing Arcane Mage on every fight and what I do in certain scenarios. I hope this guide helped you out. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment in the comments, and I'll help you out as soon as I see it. I don't mind. And I hope this guide helped you out again, and I'll see you later.